The second step is all about direct and indirect evidence. And I gave you a wonderful handout, and it comes from Linda Susky's information called Assessing Student Learning. And it talks about direct evidence versus indirect evidence. Okay? And direct evidence, or often called artifacts, are actual pieces of work that are done by students. Okay? I can't explain it in any easier term than that. Okay? It's the actual stuff the student does. And so it could be a capstone performance. So, for example, one of the things that we're doing is that we have a number of capstone courses where students are giving actual oral presentations in those capstone events. 2 years ago, we instituted with the faculty that teach those that when they have those days, there are invited guests. We don't care who you invite. You can invite their parents, you can invite their spouses, you can invite the dean, you can invite whoever you want, but we want not the class only in the room. We want students to be able to give a capstone oral presentation in front of an outside audience that they haven't met before, ideally. Invite us, let us know when it is.
You ever try and do that with WIMBA?
We probably could, but we haven't needed to. The online capstone, what we do is the students have to do a presentation that is then, they do a one-on-one presentation that is then posted and others comment on it. So in a sense, we could do it through WIMBA, but we haven't chosen. Yeah. Professional and clinical, a third-party testing could be, because a test that's a national test that's graded and monitored could be that kind of a thing. A faculty-designed examination. We are seeing that across country, that many schools have opted to do what I call this junior test, where they're giving a test to rising traditional junior students, and multiple schools are using the same thing, and then they're saying this is what we do. But I've given you a clear list here of all of the others on the left-hand side, that things that students could do. You're going to see scores on locally designed multiple choice tests. So if I do six sections of SOC 105, everybody's using the same test. Okay? So we could do it there. Score gains between entry and exit on published or local writing samples. We do that. Summaries of or analysis of discussion threads. Knowledge maps, any kind of evidence that we could do. And we spent this last summer having the conversation with faculty in each and every class about these what we call key assignments. What's the piece of evidence from your class that we could use to fit one of our learning outcomes, whether it be a general education learning outcome or whether it be a programmatic learning outcome? So, for example, in our sciences, we have a couple people that are actually testing this semester, and we're doing lab reports. We're getting copies of some of the lab reports as a demonstration of some thoughts on critical thinking. We've got some of our math faculty that are doing word problem solving, not mathematical, but word problem solving, and then the written analysis of how students did it. So we're trying to collect those types of things. That is different than indirect evidence. And indirect evidence, again, I've got a portfolio. It depends on how the portfolio is put together on whether it's a direct evidence or indirect evidence. Okay, it can go both ways. If it's a totally student directed portfolio where they've put all of their material into it, then it's a direct evidence. A portfolio, if I collect one from student A and one from student B, and I'm doing it, it's more considered indirect evidence. Okay, it's funny that way. So follow up on.
The words are real funny.
Yeah, the words are funny. So sorry. Follow up of graduates, employer ratings, self-reported growth. Indirect evidence is perceptional evidence. Okay, student satisfaction. Okay. Admission rates, placement rates, analysis of grades. Notice grades are not direct evidence any longer. Grades are not direct evidence. Want to kill your program for an accrediting visit? Tell them that you're managing grades for direct evidence. It's like the ultimate site that you don't understand assessment. So here we go. So this is the next piece. And so you're going to see that on the first, the first piece is the program. And then the second one is the student learning outcomes, which we've already seen. And the third column talks about direct and indirect evidence. So for organizational development and leadership, all of our students are required to do a presentation, and so we see that presentation. All of our students are required to maintain a reflective journal. We actually have a reflective journal that floats through all of the courses, so the students are reflecting on their learning. And they use it to write a final paper, so we get to see the final paper. They do a research paper at some point, and we collect some information from some of the tests. So all of that stuff is collected as direct evidence for that program. Okay? And then the indirect evidence is we have a focus group every single spring with graduating seniors. And so we bring students in, and we say we're going to hand you, and so we do some of it where they're doing words, and we do some of it where we're simply collecting. We literally hand them the learning outcomes for the university, and we say, we want you to grade yourself honestly on how well you think you do on these outcomes. And so we have a chart, and it says, and it's developing, competent, and excel. And so we want to know if they still are developing that skill, if they're competent with that skill, with that outcome, or if they consider themselves excellent in that. And so we list all of these learning outcomes, and we list all of the outcomes for general education. And the very first thing they do when we're gathering the group and they come in the room is they're filling it out. No name. Okay? They put their major on top because we put all our majors together. They put their major on top. We collect them and analyze that. Oh, is that telling? Oh, is that telling?
And Emily, what are the three categories that you said?
We do developing, competent, and it's excellent isn't the right word. Maybe it's expert. Maybe that's what it is. Developing, competent, and expert. Yeah, excellence wasn't right. Yes. No. Okay.
I have a question about
Yeah.
the group of seniors. Is this just sort of random, or do you?
We invite all of them.
Okay.
We always have 2 different dates. We will take up to 10 in each group. We will not take any more than 10 because I don't believe in a focus group of more than 10 because then it's not a focus group. And normally we're right at that number. We have enough grads. We normally graduate someplace between 80 and 120 students in a year-long cycle. And so that's 20 students. So it's, I look at it as 25% of my students are giving me feedback. Now we do other things. We have other conversations in that focus groups. One of the things that's fun to always ask, and we talked about it earlier, is one of the questions I ask out loud is, so when was your aha moment? As you were going through I want to hear about your aha moment. Always a fascinating conversation to hear about. As I say, when did the light bulb go off in your curriculum about what you were doing in higher ed? I want to hear about it because that's telling for me if it's certain courses or certain trends on that. We talk about that. We talk about student services. I want to know about student services and what they think we could improve and what made them the happiest and what upset them the most. And so we have a list of 14 questions that we use. It's 2 hours. It's over dinner. It's over a buffet dinner, so it's a really nice event. And it's fun. And they really enjoy doing it. They absolutely enjoy doing it. And it was interesting because 2 years ago, yeah, in the spring, I met with a group of students, and one of the students said, you don't have this on your questions, but I just have to bring it up. And I said, okay. And they said, so the mission behind Widener University is civic engagement. Mm-hmm. How come we don't have any engagement activities that we do in our curriculum?
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Busted.
And I said, well, okay, let me talk about why. And he says, you've got to be kidding me. You really think we'd be too busy for that when it means so much? That's why I'm here.
Wow.
And so we instituted our first engagement day last year. Yeah. Well, we had over 50 students and faculty participating, and it's become an annual, and it's going to be annual forever. And it was the students telling me that we weren't doing it.
Listen to the students. That was an aha moment for sure.
Oh, yeah, talk about an aha moment. Yeah, I went back and was like egg all over my face. You know, I mean, and it wasn't that we hadn't talked about it. We just didn't think anybody would take the, you know, they're busy students, so why would we do this? Wrong assumption. So those are the kinds of things. But we try and get some sense from that. So that's indirect evidence. Okay, understand the difference between direct and indirect? Okay.